Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, the government and political correspondent, and it is special election season for our 10th Senate District. We have another candidate with us today, and it's Democrat Reuben Herfindahl. Reuben,
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Nice to meet you.
And how's that last name spelled so folks recognize it?
Herfindahl, Herfindahl. It's a Norwegian name.
Okay, so definitely want to get the H sound in there.
Yes.
All right. Herfindahl. Reuben, how old are you?
I am 43.
Okay. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? I understand that you live in River Falls.
Yep. I grew up in west central Minnesota on a 1,000-acre crop and about 150 head of beef cattle. So I was a farmer there, very active in 4-H and FFA. I obtained my national FFA degree, which only about 1% of people that are an FFA ever get. I went to UWRF after looking at a lot of schools because they had one of the best programs in the state in ag education, which is what I initially went to school for.
Okay.
And I fell in love with the area. I fell in love with Western Wisconsin. The environment is amazing here. We have the St. Croix River running the entire border of our district. It's clear and clean. We have amazing state parks and national parks nearby. There's plenty of recreation area to go out and go for hikes, go skiing, go hunting, go fishing. It's an amazing area. So I fell in love with it and I stayed. Met my wife of 16 years, Carrie, here. And we have 3 wonderful children who are all in the River Falls school system.
What are their ages?
Well,
So I think we determined off camera it was 9, 12, and 15, right?
you know what? Time flies so quick. Sometimes you get that, and it's like, all the kids' ages are all stacked up.
So
the
it sounds
birthdays
like
are all
you
about
have
the same time.
one in high school, one in middle school, and one in grade school.
Yep,
Okay.
that's how we go there. Yep. So my oldest, his birthday is on Christmas Eve. My middle child, he is St. Patrick's kid, and my daughter is born January. So we kind of have the holiday family going on. So
There you go. So 2 boys and a girl, married 16 years, and mentioned living in River Falls, almost a quarter of a century, since 1993. So I understand, though, for what you do for your day job, besides running for office, is that you're in IT and you actually own you're a small business owner.
Yep, I'm a small business owner. I own a digital brigade based out of River Falls. Well, we got about 7 employees. We cover about 5 states. We primarily do small business work, small to medium business work. We take care of all their IT needs, and it keeps us hopping. We put on about 400,000 miles a year on our company fleet. So.
Wow. All right. So, and you're actually in the Pierce County portion of River Falls.
Yep.
So,
We're about 2 blocks south of Division there. So.
Okay. And so that makes you part of the 30th Assembly District.
It does, yes.
And we're interviewing you because you're a candidate for the 10th Senate District, running on the Democratic Party side. There's a 3-way primary there, I understand, and there's also a Republican primary, which is on this coming Tuesday, December 19th.
It's coming up fast.
And if you're successful there, then the general election is similarly the 3rd Tuesday of January, I believe.
Yes.
So very, very condensed election period here.
Extremely short turnaround and unfortunately timed, and it was a little bit on purpose. This is something where they're trying to sneak it under the radar, make sure nobody's paying attention. And the really exciting thing for me, and everyone should be, that people were paying attention. I can't remember the last time we've had a primary on the Democratic side where there's been 2 or even 3 people running. Similarly, we got a primary going on the Republican side. That means people are paying attention. They're not going to let this slip under the radar and just be a quick anointation of.
Well, as far as picking Tuesdays in December, though, this is the Tuesday before Christmas. I guess the only Tuesday would have been worse would maybe the day after, but who knows, maybe people would have been off work at least.
Right.
You got the hustle and bustle of Christmas. So just another plug for getting people to get out there and vote. And then the 18th, that'll be the day after, Martin Luther King Day.
Yes.
So Let's talk a little bit now. Why the Democratic Party? Have you had an affiliation with Democrats, or
I'm a lifelong Democrat. As I mentioned, I grew up in rural Minnesota, where we had. I grew up in Swift County, which in particular has a extreme long association with the DFL. In Minnesota, we have the DFL, which is the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. Very concerned with you know, the rights of farmers and caring about your neighbors. So I grew up in a politically active family. You know, my dad campaigned, you know, on Paul Wellstone's 82 Auditor campaign. So I grew up with it and believe firmly in the values of the Democratic Party.
Okay, well, you mentioned DFL, Farm and Labor, so and you started with ag education, pursuing
Yes.
an ag education degree, but do you still hold those values of being pro-worker if you're now a business owner?
Oh, very much so, and I think they're compatible. Because the best employees are the ones that come out of a good education system without the stress of massive student debt, and that are excited about working and learning. It's very similar to growing up on a farm, being a farm kid, having that good work ethic. They're very compatible.
Okay.
It's not just about punching a clock and regarding your employees as just tools to be used. I'm very interested in finding somebody that's excited, bring them up through the ladder, train them. It's very much a bit of a mentorship that I try and establish with all my employees. And I'm willing to listen, and everyone knows they can criticize me too. So.
Well, we're going to get to the why you're running for office part of this, but I just want to finish off your background. If there's any other things you want to highlight. I mean, besides creating and running a small business and then raising 3 children, that'll keep you busy enough.
It
but
does.
Have you had experience, I mean, working with other organizations? Are you a member of any clubs or organizations?
Well, you know, the kids are getting old enough that I can kind of start to do a little bit of that. Part of the fun of running a small business is it's you know, 70 hours a week, around the clock. You know, I had a great vacation in 2008, but that's about it. So you know, there isn't a lot of free time. You know, I am active in the local Chamber of Commerce, promoting local business. We have in downtown River Falls, as you do here in downtown Hudson, we have one of the most vibrant downtowns. It's amazing, especially when you drive around to other areas and see all the empty buildings. We've done a great job as a small business community, supporting each other and making sure we grow.
So you've been spending your time very business focused besides the family and having the ag background, but not somebody who necessarily has been a party insider and working a political machine for 20 years.
No, very, very much not. The last time I really was active in any form of politics was when I was in college with the College Democrats. So I'm one of those people that votes in every primary, every special election. If there's an election for dog catcher, I'm going to show up and be informed and vote, and do a little door knocking. But aside from that, I have not been an active party member.
Okay. Well, so why are you running then for the 10th Senate District as your intro to political?
Well, what I fell in love with this area when I moved here was the amazing environment, as I mentioned earlier, and the great education system. We've been watching that systematically get slashed over the last decade and a half for short-term gain. With the belief that creating jobs is all about paying next to no taxes, selling off public land so we can get some money, changing zoning laws so areas that used to be renewable resource forestry now can be mines, which can pollute the environment and turn it into an unusable resource. So on the environmental side of things, like I said, as well as the education side of things, you know, busting the teachers' unions, slashing funding for the UW system, putting these onerous school score testing systems and standardized testing and the focus on STEM and completely ignoring the arts. I got frustrated and decided that this was the way to make a change. So I decided to get into this race and aggressively push these issues. This is what people are interested in, as well as I was starting to become frustrated with the lack of much community engagement. So I'm interested in listening to people and not chasing the Madison career track. I have no ambitions to go to Madison and then move up and run for the next step and run for the next step. I'm interested in taking care of the people in my district.
Okay. So what I'm hearing, your platform is basically education, the environment, and then constituent service and responsiveness.
Yes.
Okay, let's take those one at a time. And I'm just going to pick environment first. I think you mentioned it kind of early on as far as the beauty of the area and so forth. There's kind of a dichotomy that's been set up, particularly by some of the people that are already in office, and at least one of the candidates, is that you're either pro-business or you're not. And that if you're pro-business, that means that we need to change the zoning laws to be able to promote business and development, and we need to reduce the amount of environmental regulation we have.
It's extremely backwards looking. We are in the 21st century, well into it at this point. We don't need to look back at failed mining practices that were starting to be looked down upon in the early part of the 20th century. We need to look at keeping this state the great place it is to live and leaving the environment a better place for our next generation. This isn't a resource to be exploited and thrown away. When you look at, for example, the Foxconn deal, one of the worst polluters on the planet, one of the biggest known human rights violators on the planet, and we're putting them in at the border with a promise of manufacturing jobs that isn't going to hold out. Automation is taking over at a massive rate. We've seen it for years. And if you think a robot can't assemble a TV screen, you're not paying attention. Initially there needs to be some a little bit of human hands, but I don't see there being 13,000 jobs in 10 years in Foxconn. What we need to do is keep the environment great, because that's what you don't want to live in a place that's surrounded by wasteland. You want to live someplace where you can get out and enjoy the outdoors. That's a good employee, somebody that can, after work, they can go out with the bow and hunt some deer, they can go skiing, they can go fish in the Kinney. So stripping away environmental regulations was a bad idea in the 1970s. It's an even worse idea today. And I would argue that it does not promote business growth. If you really want to invest money in business and promote business growth, well, we can do a lot of things to improve the ability to start a small business, to maintain a small business. That's where the majority of the Wisconsin population works. They either work on farms or agriculture or recreational land use, supporting.
So you don't see somebody being that's in favor of maintaining or protecting our environment has to be necessarily anti-business?
No, not at all. We have 140,000 people in this state that work directly with the environment, whether that's running a hunting lodge or whether that's being a lift up at Trollhagen. There's 140,000 jobs. There's $3 billion a year generated by tourism coming in to enjoy our recreational areas.
So you think tourism and protecting the environment kind of go hand in hand?
Right, and manufacturing jobs that are destructive to the environment are not long-term viable. There's always going to be some manufacturing, but if you look at the level of manufacturing we had in 1940 versus what we have today, it's been a straight line down, and it's not going to change. We have a changing economy and a well-educated, trained workforce that can breathe clean air and boat on a fresh, clean river. That's where the future is.
So you don't see the good old days coming back before automation and going back to
No,
more
no,
human dependent labor?
no. There's just, it's, turning a screw in an assembly line can be done by a robot. It's been done by robots for years. They're getting more and more capable of more and more complex operations.
But if we just reduce the minimum wage so that if we pay people low enough, then it would be less expensive to have the human labor than the automation.
No, you can still automate this to a point where it's always going to be cheaper than human labor.
Okay.
I mean, if we were paying $2 an hour, maybe, but I don't even see that. You look at the computing power of the phone we all have in our pocket. That thing is. The $200 phone is more powerful than the most powerful supercomputer we had 7 or 8 years ago. It's and
you don't see technology stopping its development?
no, this is it's Moore's law. We are going to double the speed of computing every 18 months, and there's no sign of it stopping.
How about increasing access to broadband? Is that part of what?
It's a huge part, and I reckon it back to the rural electrical push in the 1940s and 50s. My grandparents' farm first got power in the mid-50s, and they took the time to run a pole out to everyone's house. High-speed internet is every bit as important as power was in the 1950s. I work in the business, and I can't tell you the frustration I get from my rural clients that are trying to run a business and their only option is satellite. And the satellite providers try real hard, but it's never going to be anywhere near as fast as the broadband you get in town. For my business, I have a 300 megabit line coming into my business, and it doesn't cost me that much. They're paying the same in the rural area for a 5 megabit line. That's not fair. We've started to make some moves to, put some fiber in, run that. But the fiber that runs through so many people's front yards, underneath the yards, there's no access point to it. So we need to take the time to invest to make access points for all this. The ability to have internet should be as
Shouldn't
basic as...
that just be all privatized? I mean, let the big companies...
No, because there's no incentive. If you live in a farm north of Hudson, it's going to cost somebody $60,000 to run a line through your field to the house to get you turned on. Or you can run that same line all the way along all the farms on the way and put an access point in. The only people that are going to do that is the government. Now, they can build it out and then sell off the rights to use it to AT&T or Comcast or Baldwin Telecom or whoever it may be.
Similar to the way we did power when electricity started.
Exactly, and we have a phone line running to everyone's, an analog phone line running to everyone's house. That wasn't cheap. AT&T made a lot of money using those lines, but AT&T didn't run those lines. That was an initiative of the government, and we are still paying a small FCC fee on every phone bill that was changed during the Obama administration to run the fiber. But we need to also make that point accessible. So you called it an investment.
You see it where if we have that expenditure, which is going to increase the amount of government spending in the short term, you see that being paid back over time?
I see it being paid back easily. The number of people that can work out of their home, save wear and tear on the roads, driving into work every day, or when we get our fun weather in the winter around here, the lost productivity alone pays for this.
Okay. Now, you also mentioned about a well-educated workforce, and we have about 6 minutes left, so I want to definitely speak on, because you said your big two were environment, which we've covered.
Yep.
You talked about small business and the importance of broadband, and now with education. There's others who would argue that we're spending too much on education and that the governor went overboard in increasing the state aid, for instance, to the K-12 system. What would you say to that?
There is a good criticism to be said. We have too often just thrown money at education. We need to throw focused money at it. There's too many times where that focus is just whatever comes out of Madison. We're going to spend money on smart boards. We're going to spend money on iPads, but we're not going to spend money supporting the teachers. Let's use some of that targeted money and give it to the school and let the school board decide a little bit, let the teachers decide a little bit. As I
So
mentioned,
you're more for local control as opposed to
absolutely,
Madison run our education system.
absolutely local control, but we do have to get some funding from Madison. We need to have equal and fair funding for each district. But pushing away from, the benchmark for a school should not be how many people are doing really good on standardized tests. My 3 kids have the same background. They come from the same parents, same academic background. They're extremely different kids. They have different learning styles. When you have a smaller classroom size, let's say 15 kids, where a teacher can get to know each one of those kids and not have to worry about, we need to make sure all these kids are at exactly the same level in math so we can get that test score to get it good. No, let's focus on the kid and his learning style and moving him up to the next place. I always think back of it when at work, when we have people come in and they're learning about for example, how to fix a printer. I'm a service manual guy. I love the service manual with exploded view of how, and here's all the parts go together, and I totally zone out on the YouTube videos. There's people that'll look at the service manual and say, let's look at the tear apart video on YouTube. Those are different learning styles. And we need to fully support that. And that's why sometimes, spending all the money on technology, forcing kids how to use it, and you got somebody that's a bad typer, but they actually know the answers, or they're a bad speller, it puts their test scores down. So let's focus on empowering the teacher, taking away some of these the standardized testing focus, and there's nothing wrong with STEM, but we do need to also allow focus for the arts, for music,
For agriculture.
for agriculture education, for vocational education.
Right.
We need electricians, we need plumbers, we need guys to fix your computers. We don't all have to be computer programmers to program the next great app for your iPhone.
Well, I think that, and like you said, let the school board look where the priorities ought to be and what's best for their specific district, because it varies quite a bit across the state.
It does, and the nice thing about if there's somebody on the school board that is causing trouble and not doing what the parents like, it's a lot easier to vote them out of office than for local issues than it is to vote out the governor for a local issue in your school district.
Well, and what about just overall funding on the K-12 as you've seen it over the last decade?
Well, the funding has been drawn back quite a bit. It's made a number of good teachers leave the profession. The wage freezes, the taking away of the rights of collective bargaining by teachers, it's causing trouble. And
folks would look at this last budget, the 2017-18 budget, and say, look how much the governor put, $200 per student. For
right,
2
but
years
it's a drop in the bucket compared to how much funding has been cut over the last decade. If you haven't fed me breakfast for 2 months and then you throw me a slice of bread on Monday, well, that's awfully nice of you, but it still doesn't make up for the fact that I've been hungry and I'm underweight. So we need to restore funding to the system. Stepping into the UW system, we absolutely need to put some money into that. When I went to school at UW, I paid for my student debt in about 3 to 5 years. I was able to go to school, work a part-time job, and have enough money to go to the movies on Saturday night. That's no longer the case. Everyone is so worried about their student debt.
Well, it's made 4-year education, even at a state school, something that is almost unattainable unless you've got, a nice fund saved up. And
right, and it's hard for people to save up because we aren't making as much as a middle class as we used to as a percentage of the GDP. It's hard to put money away for college, especially when it's gotten so expensive.
So what's the solution? Is it more aid to families that qualify? Or
we used to have a formula in this state and most of the other states where the state would cover half the tuition fee, and that would be part of your tax base. I think that makes sense because it's a lot easier to have, $1 or $2 out of every paycheck that you have for the rest of your life, go to an education fund that will help it make possible for everyone to go to college. I'm not saying everybody has to be able to go to a private school, but we have a great public university system in this state, and anyone should be able to afford to go to it and pay off that debt within a few years. There's so many of the people coming out of school that say, I'm out of school, now I need to get into that $70,000 job. Nobody's going to hire you right out of school for that $70,000 job. So you got to get work experience. That's one of the things. I'm very active in hiring recent college graduates in the IT firm. Get them some work experience. Move them up as far as we can. We have former employees that work for Dell, HP. I have a former employee that works for the NSA.
So it's part of the progression.
It's part of that step. We've lost a bit of the apprenticeship focus that we used to have. But
well, I'm sorry we ran out of time.
Sure.
It's been great talking to you. I think we got to know Reuben Herfindahl very well here on what your issues are. Good luck on Tuesday. We have, again, the primary is on Tuesday, December 19th, and then the general election, January 18th. Good luck.
Thank you.
And look forward to hearing more from you. And maybe if you advance to the next level, we'll have another opportunity.
Well,
right.
it was a pleasure, and thank you for having me.
You bet. And thank you for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal.